We knew Alcaide needed a very good day, Phil. He's had a good start to it, and all he can do is win his matches and hope for the best, I guess.
Yes, I think the significant number attached to Alcaide right now is the fact he's played 22 matches, so he's got 2 more left. He has to win them both, and then hope springs eternal.
First rack, David Alcaide to break.
Well, even the longest journey begins with a single step. In this case, it's the lag. Alcaide has won that, and he'll get us underway.
Well, that's not too bad at all. There's a clear path to the 1. It was debatable for a while. The 2 nearly intruded. Yeah, so basically today we are trying to reduce 10 players to 6. It's actually 8 players now chasing the 6 spots. As we've said, Vertunsky and Al Shaheen just playing for pride, and obviously who finishes 9th, who finishes 10th.
Well, it's amazing how there were players who weren't mathematically sure, but you really weren't thinking we're in any danger, really, of missing out on the final phase. But the way things have gone, they now find themselves still battling for wins. Ouschan certainly falls into that category. Started off like a train. He won all of his first 10 matches. But it was Alcaide who actually ended that sequence with a 5-1 win on Thursday. And once Ouschan had lost, he just kept on in that way. It was the start of a run of 4 defeats in a row, which he only ended in his last match of the first phase against Kelly Fisher. I think mentally was through the exit door by then.
On table 2, a very swashbuckling rack, as you might expect, has fallen to Jason Shaw. He's such a good player to watch, and he and Joshua Filler, another easy player on the eye, are locked together at 1-1.
Well, this opening rack that David Alcaide has put together has been pretty easy on the eye in itself. When you've just lost, the last thing you want to do is go straight back out and play. But when you've had a really good win, can't wait to get stuck into your next match. And it's working well for Alcaide. Right at the start here, he leads the world champion Albin Ouschan. In next door, Jason Shaw and Joshua Filler. Remember, all the matches on table 2 throughout the tournament are available to watch on matchroom.live. And really, Phil, if you were introducing someone to the game of Nineball and you wanted to show them a matchup between 2 of the best players to watch, you couldn't do better than this.
Absolutely not. Jason Shaw on 15 points. He's basically in the top 6, but of course he fully understands if he finishes powerfully today, what he does for the rest of today could pretty much put him in the top 4 for tomorrow, and therefore earn his place in the semi-finals.
Well, when we get these new formats, you never really know how it's going to work out or understand the full implications of everything until you see it in action. And 1 or 2 of the players who got off to a great start in phase 1, including the man at the table here, have acknowledged that they did take their eye off the ball a bit when they knew they were through to phase 2. And are now thinking they really should have tried a bit harder to put more wins on the board towards the end of that first phase to feather their nest.
I remember a conversation on air we were having, Michael, when Ouschan won his first 10 matches. We were wondering whether he could go unbeaten in that first phase. Nowhere near. And the wheels have come off since. They can be reattached, but time's running out.
Well, remember when we were having those discussions. I think if someone had said then that he'd still be in so much danger of potentially missing out on the final day by this stage, our instinct would have been, well, that seemed very unlikely indeed. But some players, because of their psychological makeup, just as they can get into a winning habit, once it ends, can fall into a rut in the opposite direction. Ouschan did eventually win the Championship League, which was played here around about this time last year. But there were several days where he really looked bogged down in it all, match after match, and if things weren't going his way, he was getting really frustrated. And it was only when he snapped out of that way of thinking that he really took control of that tournament and ended up playing very well towards the end to win it. Jason Shaw has just potted the 8-ball using the bridge towards the end of rack 3 against Joshua Filler. But he scratched and left a simple 9-ball for Filler to lead 2-1 in a match where he really could do with getting things back on track.
The 3-ball does Alcaide's bidding. After the previous match when, let's be frank, not a lot was riding on it. This is a very different feel.
Foul shot. Ball in hand.
Yeah, and this rack has a different feel now. Not entirely straightforward, but the Albin Ouschan of earlier in the week, even though he wasn't playing at his very best, he would always have backed him to run it out from here. Just looks a bit less sure of himself than he did earlier in the week. I think his self-belief carried him through a lot of his early matches. As I said, he didn't play brilliantly in all of them. But he was very effective at just finding a way to win. The fact that he wasn't at the very top of his game, we suspected that might catch up with him at some point, and certainly been the case since that winning streak ended.
Every player we've seen today, at times during the week, has been on really good form. It's all about hitting form tomorrow night, but of course it's also about getting there. As on table 2, Jason Shaw calamitously scratches again.
Yeah, you want to get there, and you want to get there playing well. You look at someone like Skylar Woodward, who wasn't doing so well after 4 days. Felt he was playing all right, but his results weren't putting him among the obvious contenders for the title. Now it's his turn to find a run of wins, and he's looking like a very serious challenger at this stage. Albin Ouschan then levels with David Alcaide at 1 apiece. As we arrive over on the other side of the arena, just in time to see Joshua Filler go 3-1 up on Jason Shaw. I think the thing we were looking at the most in terms of Filler at the start of the day, Phil, was how he would play. Would he be missing easy balls, as he was towards the end of yesterday? There was no sign of that, really, from what I saw of his match against David Alcaide. So from that point of view, not all bad news from that match, even though he did lose it. He's looking very good in that one now.
Yes, after the first phase, his racks difference was extraordinarily one-sided in his favour. Not so much now, because he suffered a couple of heavy defeats last night. And so consequently, if he does beat Jason Shaw, he will move on to 15 points alongside Shaw, but Shaw would remain in top spot.
1 rack each.
There could be possibly a quick conclusion to this rack. The one cozying up to the 9, we'll get a better view here whether the combo's on. Has to be made, and there's a very short amount of distance between 1 and 9, so this might not be viable. Couldn't do it, was resigned to that fact, and so played what was a reasonable safety, although a small sliver of the 1 is poking out.
Extension code. Extension code.
Well, the previous combination wasn't viable. Certainly seems to be eyeing up this one. This isn't easy either, though, Phil.
No, but the distance between the 1 and the 9 does give him a chance to make it. Bingo.
Yeah, it was enough to tempt him into it, and he was justified. Great finish to the rack for David Alcaide. He leads again at 2-1.
4.
Break and run accounted for the opening rack for David Alcaide, and a wonderful combo to finish the third. Albin Ouschan took rack 2 in between. He's 2-1 down.
It's 3-2 to Joshua Filler on the other table now. It looked as though Jason Shaw was going to scratch yet again, but the cue ball just came to rest on the lip of the pocket. He then potted a really good 5 to the side and was able to halve his arrears. So 1 and 4 in, but the path to the 2 is being blocked by the 5.
Extension code. Push out code.
Shaw has scratched off the break in rack 6 and left a very inviting table for Filler. So that could be going 3-3. Sorry, 4-2. Filler already leading 3-2 in that one.
The cue ball very nearly went off the table. Just caught the top of the rail, and look where it's come to rest.
Cue ball nearly off the table. The good fortune off the charts.
That white was so high on the rail, wasn't it? Right on the top, another centimetre. That would have been heading for the carpet.
It was dancing around like a jackhammer. Joshua Filler just had a little bit of good fortune there. Looked as though he might get himself in trouble behind the 9. But once that pitfall had been avoided, it was pretty straightforward from there. So Shaw's scratch off the break is costly. And Joshua Filler does indeed lead 4-2, and he'll be breaking in the next rack. Really needs that. He's lost 3 in a row now. Only had 1 win out of 5 so far in the second phase.
Ouschan unable to disguise his annoyance. The 2-8 is on.
Yeah, not a good sign that from Ouschan. We've spoken about how he does let his feelings get the better of him at times if things aren't going his way, and it's never a good thing for his game. Some players, when they get annoyed about things, maybe it fires them up. He tends Tends to get in his own way when he starts feeling like that.
After this, Alcaide's got one more match to play against Omar Al Shaheen. Middle of the session on table 2 this evening. Could he possibly wriggle out of this? Looked as though he was heading for the exit door. If he wins this match and the next, you never know. Had to play the stun shot there at maximum pace to manufacture the angle to get the cue ball back across the table for the 7.
Yeah, depending on how the timings work out, Alcaide could very well be the first player to have completed all of his 24 matches across the first 2 phases. So when that's over, he could have a very long wait, but what a dreadful miss to have when you need to make the most of everything that comes your way. You've left yourself very little margin for error in the league table, and then you play a shot like that. That's got to be just about his worst miss of the whole week.
Well, he was playing with side, obviously for positional reasons, because the cue ball didn't come quite enough across the table for a straighter 7, but there's still no excuse for that. What a let-off for Albin Ouschan. I don't think he can quite believe he's back on level terms, Michael.
And it just underlines again how quickly things can change in the whole context of the match, because a moment ago it looked like Alcaide was going to be breaking at 3-1 up, instead of which he's now under a bit of pressure for his breaking rack. He's really got to have to work hard to put that out of his head. Now, Joshua Filler, on the other hand, leading 4-2. This would be massive if he could win this one. He's been struggling for results. At times, he's been struggling for confidence over the last 24 hours or so. Shaw, on the other hand, has been the form player of this phase. He won all of his 5 matches yesterday. 3 of them were by 5-1 margins. So a 5-2 win over Shaw would be ideal for restoring Filler's belief. And of course, the point in itself would be massive. He'd go alongside Shaw on 15.
Didn't want to be straight on the 6, though.
Rock 5.
We'll let you know how that one
David Alcaide to break.
ends up.
To rock siege.
He has knocked in the 6. Keeping our promise, so back over to table 2 momentarily. It's a thin cut on the 8, but shouldn't be a problem.
We've been saying all weekend that we think 15 is the target you need to get through. Filler just giving us a modicum of late drama here. This shouldn't be a problem, and it isn't a problem. Big result, big performance from Joshua Filler. Shaw's scratch on the break a little earlier. Perhaps the pivotal moment in that contest. So Filler wins at 5-2. They have both got 3 matches left to play, and they're both now on 15. So may well have done enough at this stage. So next on that table, Skylar Woodward. He'll be on 15 if he beats Omar Al Shaheen, who's bottom of the table and has had a mixed day so far.
Yes, just to say, for what it's worth, Shaw remains top of the table with 15 points. He's got a plus 27 racks difference. Filler's is plus 22.
You say for what it's worth, it could be worth quite a lot, Phil, because getting so tight there that rack's difference could make the difference between being in those semi-finals and not. And Albin Ouschan knows all about that, you know. When we were here for the Championship League last year, he only got through to the semi-finals on the last night on the basis of the racks count back. It was slightly different then. It went first of all to racks 1, and he was level on matches 1 with Naoki Oi, and they both won the same amount of racks. Ouschan just got through by virtue of having lost fewer. It's so cliched to say it, but it's so true as well. Every single rack is worth fighting for while you're still in that qualification mix. Remember, everything carries through. All your racks won and lost, all the matches you've played. As we were saying a couple of days ago, it's a bit like qualifying in a Formula One event. Trying to put yourself in pole position, or at least get near the front of the grid going into the decisive day. But what a time to do that, Phil.
We've seen quite a number of miscues, particularly in the last few days. Another twist to a match that's had plenty of them already.
That's not going to do much for his increasingly fragile state of mind. He doesn't keep his thoughts to himself. He's slipping into that mental zone, having a word with himself and the world in general there. Oh, but David Alcaide has passed up that golden opportunity. If he loses this match now, he's going to be absolutely sick, some of the shots he's played.
Especially because if he does lose, it's bye-bye. That could have been better. Needed to make contact just a little thicker off the cushion. Okay, the 5 is on, but there's pressure on this, especially when you've been making a few mistakes. They start to erode confidence. I'll tell you what, this 6 is no parking.
It's developed, hasn't it, into one of those racks that, the way it's played out, whoever loses it is going to be kicking himself. And it's still in the balance as to who that's going to be.
So often in Q Sports, the lower the quality, the higher the drama. That would certainly apply in rack number 5 here. Oh, wow. You beauty.
Yeah, it's turned into one of the most significant racks of the whole tournament so far. And Albin Ouschan has finished it in style to lead David Alcaide for the first time now at 3-2. And it's not so much a highlights reel of that rack, more lowlights. We're going to look back on some of the balls that were missed there, some of the mistakes. And that was the one that nearly went off the table. Ouschan looking a little embarrassed. That was the 7 Alcaide missed. Not the sort of shot he has the luxury of missing at this stage. More problems for Ouschan there with the miscue, but Alcaide passes up that chance on the 4. And after all that, it finishes with this. Nice way to round it off. Huge rack. Albin Ouschan wins it. He leads now 3-2.
Sometimes in pool, especially in a short race, you can hardly make a mistake. Play pretty faultless pool and lose heavily.
Leading by 3 rocks.
Here, Ouschan has made, as we've seen there, a collection of errors, and yet he's in the ascendancy.
It's more like what was happening to him in the first phase when there were a number of matches, particularly the one against Joshua Filler, where he really, by his own acknowledgement, had plenty of good fortune. But at least he finished it off in style. Didn't squander the opportunity he'd been given. Alcaide has 2 shots to look back on that he just won't forgive himself for if he loses now.
There's a rapid turnaround of matches across this arena. On table 2, the latest match to begin, Omar Al-Shaheen against Skylar Woodward.
Yeah, Woodward looking for his 5th win in a row there. Obviously the priority is to stay in the tournament, but so long as you're doing that, whatever the format, but particularly in one like this, clearly the ideal way to time it is to find your best form towards the end of the event. Woodward is absolutely typifying that. Ten matches now he's played since Friday morning. And he's won 9 of them. And the other one was only 5-4 against Jason Shaw.
The problem with that escape, he was limited in where he could actually hit the 1 ball because of the 9, and he's left it on.
Extension code.
Obviously going to be much easier for Ouschan to forget his mistakes from the previous rack because he won it anyway. But we might get some clues here as to whether he's snapped out of that mental funk that he seemed to be slipping into.
This is a thing that a sports psychologist would perhaps never tell a player, because you want to retain positive thoughts all the time. But in cue sports, you don't have to play well to win matches sometimes. You just have to play better than the other guy.
Yeah, and sometimes not even that. I mean, we've seen a number of matches here. Look at Shane Van Boning, for example. He's had a couple of matches where he's been the better player and ended up losing. I think it's particularly the case in Nineball. Someone can be by far the better performer, just have 1 or 2 things go against them, or 1 bad miss, and end up losing.
Yes, certainly in the sprint distances, the lengthier the match, the more the likelihood of the better player losing is reduced.
Skylar Woodward has just played a lovely positional shot to get on the 9. Down the side of the table, and he pots it and leads Omar Al-Shaheen 1-0. Well, we talked about Ouschan's state of mind, but positive signs in this rack for the Austrian. Taken these well so far.
Yeah, the 6 will be floated down the rail, natural angle to come off the side cushion for the 7. Oh, but what a poor one that was.
as we were talking about how well he'd taken them. Seemed to have maybe moved on from the struggles of the previous rack, which of course he did end up winning anyway. He goes and does that. But let's not take anything for granted. Alcaide really let him off the hook in the previous rack.
Just one possible thought, mitigating circumstance. It could possibly have been a skid that saw the 6-ball straightener, but I don't think so. Crazy. This is a straight in 6 and then knocks in the unbelievable jump.
Yeah, we've seen both extremes, haven't we, in this match? Some wonderful shots mixed in with some shocking misses. That one definitely goes firmly into the former category. This not a certainty, though. As he's proved, and he's scratched. Well, it's 3-all now, isn't it? Talk about fluctuating fortunes.
Start the clock,
It's been a roller coaster rack for Ouschan. And the thing with a roller coaster, it always finishes at the bottom. And that's the way it's gone for him here.
You know, Michael, Alcaide's made his mistakes, but Ouschan has made a lot more.
Without doubt. So Ouschan look to be heading for the hill. Instead, it's 3-all. The finish is next. It's developed into the sort of match that whoever loses it is going to come away with big regrets, and it would have big consequences for whoever that turns out to be. Albin Ouschan would really be in danger of missing out on the final phase. If he goes down to defeat, David Alcaide can pretty much forget it if he loses. 3-all.
And in these circumstances, when it all comes down to the crunch, that kind of break is gold dust. Ball's in, clear shot on the 1, open table, nothing to worry about, apart from pressure.
Yeah, and you have to look at this match and wonder to what extent pressure has played its part in the errors we've seen. It's a league format. They both got through the first phase comfortably enough. But now they're both in the mix as we come towards the end of phase 2. So, in a sense, they're switching to knockout mode. It's a different way of thinking. For Alcaide, it really is knockout if he loses. Skylar Woodward just looking so good now. 2-0 up on Omar El Shaheen. He can join Sean Filler on 15 wins if he takes that one. And those three could potentially be 2 clear of the rest.
On table 1, it's been back and forth. Errors, miscalculations, blunders. This rack, though, smooth.
At 3-all, it was 3 balls off the break for the man from Malaga. And as Phil says, he's taken care of business from there. Alcaide was 3-2 down. He now leads 4-3. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, I play really good, no, all matches. I think my first match against my friend from Francisco, we play so nervous. It's the first match, the new table. But during the tournament, I take more confidence. I play much better. My break work much better. This is right for me. I prefer this format. You play for everybody, so many matches. And last year we played 6 matches per day, and sometimes it's so hard. No, you come to play for one group, and maybe you go home next day. Here you have more possibility to give you your best level. I think it's much better format. I try to don't think too much for the next stage. I try to think in my next match. I try to win more game possibility, and maybe I have chance to qualify the next stage.
Albin, Ouschan to break.
So David Alcaide,
By 3 racks.
with a very nice rack 7, is now on the hill. Albin Ouschan under pressure.
Even more so now with the obstructing 7-ball to the 1. The great thing for Alcaide when you're in this situation, 4-3 up, knowing if it does go to a deciding rack you're going to break, it's like 2 bites of the cherry.
Meanwhile, the rise and rise of Skylar Woodward goes on. He's 3-0 up now against Omar El Shaheen. He's just rifled in the 1 at the start of the next rack. As I was saying, he would join Jason Shaw and Joshua Filler on 15 wins if he completes victory there. If it's either 5-0 or 5-1, he'll go ahead of Filler into 2nd place on the racks countback.
So Ouschan makes contact but leaves the 1 on. 2 in the open, 3 in the open. You get the picture.
You know, earlier today, Omar El Shaheen was looking very good in his win over Shane Van Boning. Looked to have just let his arm go, knowing he was heading out of the tournament. But looks to have had the wind taken out of his sails. Lost to Mieszko Fortunski, 3-0 down, as I said, against Woodward. Now he's the opponent, Al Shaheen, for Alcaide's last match. It's going to be quite a wait, probably going to be about 6:30, 7 o'clock this evening when they take to the table.
10 seconds.
But Alcaide started the day knowing he needed to win all three of his matches to give himself any chance of getting through. Go into that feeling pretty good, feeling he can complete the job. Could then be facing another long wait to see whether it's good enough. As I said, he could well be the first player to complete all of his matches.
10 seconds.
Got to take care of this one first, though. But it's a great chance.
Well, 4 and 5 are gimmies. You would think the only possible pitfall would be position from 5 to 6, but even then, that's a stretch. It should be elementary. Skylar Woodward, 2 pots away from 4-0.
Two of David Alcaide's biggest matches of 2021 were against Albin Ouschan. One of them was the final of the Championship League here. Another was the semi-final of the World Championship. He lost them both comfortably. But he's going to win this one. What an absorbing contest it's been. So many mistakes, but some quality on both sides as well. And particularly towards the finish from David Alcaide, who from 3-2 down